The galaxy's oldest empires have a saying about humans. They die so fast, they learn to live in the cracks between heartbeats. Nobody thought that was a compliment. Nobody understood what it actually meant. Until the harvest came. The observation deck of the Xylosian cruiser Silent Gaze smelled like copper and burned sugar, which was just how Captain Vex preferred it. She stood with her upper limbs folded across her thoracic plate, watching the blue-green marble turn beneath her ship. Third planet from a mediocre star. Class C civilization. No infidele. No planetary defense grid. No reason anyone would ever look twice at it. Except the harvesters had found it. Confirm the coordinates, Vex said, not turning around. Her navigation officer, a twitching creature named Rel with too many eyes and not enough patience, tapped his console. Confirmed. Sector 7 green. Local species designation, Earth. Dominant intelligence, Homo sapiens. Population, approximately 8 billion. 8 billion, Vex repeated. The number sat in her auditory canals like a stone. The harvesters will be pleased. Rel's extra eyes blinked in sequence. Captain, I should note, the preliminary scout reports contain some anomalies. Anomalies regarding the humans. Their technology is primitive. Their lifespan is comically short. Their physical capabilities are unremarkable. Rel paused, which was unusual for him. But their survival instinct is classified as aberrant. Vex finally turned around. Her face was a mask of chitin and patience evolved over 50 million years of Xylosian dominance. The Xylosians had been harvesting Class C civilizations since before most current species had learned to walk upright. They were not conquerors. They were collectors. They came, they took the genetic material they needed, and they left. The civilizations they harvested from rarely even knew they'd been there. Aberrant how? The scout report uses the term pathological persistence. Humans have been observed continuing to fight after receiving injuries that would cause complete system shutdown in any other Class C species. They have been observed choosing death over submission. They have been observed, Rel's voice dropped, as if what he was about to say embarrassed him. They have been observed refusing to abandon their young, even when escape is impossible. Vex chitin plates twitched. That last one was unusual. Most species abandon their young at the first sign of danger. It was efficient. It was logical. It was how the galaxy worked. How long until the harvesters arrive? 3 standard cycles. 3 cycles. 72 hours in local Earth time. Enough time to observe. Enough time to confirm that these humans were nothing special, nothing to worry about, nothing that would complicate the harvest. Vex had a bad feeling in her thoracic cavity. She didn't get bad feelings. She was a Xylosian. They didn't have feelings, not in the way other species understood the word. They had assessments, projections, strategic certainties. But something about this planet made her chitin itch. Send a scout team down, she said. I want eyes on the ground. And I want a human. The human they brought back was unconscious, which was probably for the best. His name, according to the scout team's translation device, was Marcus Webb. Age, 34 standard years. Occupation, something called a paramedic, which appeared to be a profession dedicated to keeping other humans alive. He was of average height, average weight, average everything. His blood pressure was unremarkable. His neural activity was unremarkable. His genetic structure was by galactic standards embarrassingly simple. Vex stood over his suspended form in the medical bay, watching his chest rise and fall. Rise and fall. Rise and fall. The rhythm was hypnotic. Steady. Like a drumbeat that refused to stop. He's been unconscious for 4 hours, the medical officer said. Her name was Sith, and she was not Xylosian, but a member of a client species, which meant she did all the actual work while Vex made decisions. His vitals are stable. But there's something strange. Show me. Sith projected a hologram of Marcus Webb's brain activity. It was a storm of color, light, and firing synapses, far more active than any unconscious mind should be. He's dreaming, Sith said, but not like other species dream. His brain is processing, preparing. It's as if even in sleep, he's running survival scenarios. Vex watched the lights dance. Is that normal for humans? According to our data, yes. Humans spend approximately 1/3 of their lives in this state. They call it sleep. But their brains never truly rest. They're always running calculations, always preparing for threats, always, Sith hesitated, always expecting something to go wrong. How exhausting. It appears to be their default state. Marcus Webb's eyes opened. Vex had seen a lot of things in her 50 million years. She had seen stars go supernova. She had seen civilizations rise and fall. She had seen creatures so terrible they had no name in any language. But she had never seen a creature wake up from unconsciousness and immediately assess every exit in the room, every potential weapon, every threat vector. Marcus did it in less than 2 seconds. She could see the calculation happening behind his eyes. The fear, the focus, the absolute, almost religious commitment to not dying. Where am I? His voice was rough. Human voices were always rougher than she expected. Like rocks grinding together. Like something that had been used too hard and too often. You are aboard the Xylosian cruiser Silent Gaze, Vex said. You have been selected for observation prior to the harvest. Marcus's eyes didn't blink, didn't widen, didn't do any of the things Vex expected from a Class C primitive confronted with an alien spacecraft. Instead, he sat up slowly, checked his own body for injuries, and asked, "What harvest?" Vex explained. It took longer than expected because Marcus kept asking questions. What kind of genetic material? How was it extracted? Did it hurt? Had anyone ever died? How many civilizations had been harvested? What happened to them afterward? Were they aware during the process? Could they feel it? By the time she finished explaining, Vex realized something unusual. Marcus wasn't afraid. He was gathering information, building a map, preparing. "You're going to take my DNA?" Marcus said finally. "That's it. That's the harvest. That's the harvest. And the rest of us? The 8 billion humans who aren't selected for observation. They will not remember. The process is designed to be undetectable. Your species will continue as if nothing happened." Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then, he did something Vex did not expect. He laughed. It was not a pleasant laugh. It was the laugh of someone who had just been told a very dark joke and was the only one in the room who understood the punchline. "You don't know us," he said. "You really don't know us at all." The harvest began on schedule. Vex watched from the bridge as the harvester ships descended through Earth's atmosphere. They were beautiful in a terrible way, sleek, black, silent. They moved like sharks through water, each one targeting a major population center. The process was surgical, efficient. Millions of Xylosians had perfected it over millennia. The humans shouldn't have noticed anything. But they did. "Captain," Rel said, his voice tight. "We're receiving unusual readings from the surface." "Show me." The hologram bloomed to life, displaying Earth's surface in real time. Vex expected to see what she always saw during a harvest. Sleeping cities, unaware populations, the gentle drift of genetic material being collected and stored. Instead, she saw chaos. The harvesters were designed to be invisible. They bent light around themselves. They emitted a low-frequency pulse that induced calm and compliance in primitive species. It was flawless technology, unbeatable technology. But the humans were looking at them. Not all of them. Maybe 1 in 1,000. But that was the problem. 1 in 1,000 of 8 billion was 8 million people. 8 million humans scattered across the planet, staring up at the harvesters with expressions that ranged from confusion to fear to something else entirely. Something Vex had never seen before. Recognition. "Impossible," she breathed. "They can't see us." The compliance pulse appears to be failing," Rel said. "In approximately 0.3% of the population, the pulse is having the opposite effect. Instead of inducing calm, it's triggering agitation, aggression. A human in Tokyo just threw a piece of fruit at a harvester. A piece of fruit. A fermented fruit. They call it a Molotov cocktail. The harvester is on fire." Vex watched the hologram as more harvesters began to flicker, their light-bending technology failing as humans pointed devices at them. Cameras, phones, things that recorded and transmitted and shared. Within minutes, images of the harvesters were spreading across the planet's primitive information network. The humans weren't just seeing them. They were telling each other about them. Captain, the harvesters are reporting resistance. Physical resistance. Humans are climbing them, with their hands and feet. They're using tools to breach the hulls. One harvester in a region called Texas has been completely disabled by a human who appears to be operating a ground vehicle under the influence of a chemical stimulant. Vex's chitin plates were twitching so hard she thought they might crack. How? How are they doing this? Rel pulled up the human medical files they collected. It appears to be related to their neurological structure. Captain, the compliance pulse works by targeting a specific receptor in the brain. Most Class C species have a uniform receptor distribution. But humans, he paused. Humans are variable. Approximately 99.7% of them respond normally. But the other 0.3% have receptor configurations that are completely resistant. Some of them are actually hypersensitive. The pulse feels like an attack to them. They're fighting it. 99.7% is still a majority. The harvest should still be proceeding. Captain, Rel's voice was barely a whisper now. The humans who are resistant aren't staying in one place. They're moving. And the other humans, the 99.7% who should be compliant, they're listening to the resistant ones, following them, copying their behavior. The hologram showed it happening in real time. A resistant human in Cairo started shouting instructions. Within minutes, hundreds of compliant humans were following those instructions, throwing rocks, building barricades, forming human chains around the harvesters. It's a cascade, Vex said, understanding dawning like a terrible sunrise. The resistant ones are acting as catalysts. Yes, Captain. The humans call them leaders. Marcus Webb had been moved to a holding cell, but Vex found herself returning to him anyway. There was something about the way he sat, calm, patient, watching, that reminded her of a predator waiting for prey that didn't know it was being hunted. "You're losing," he said as she entered. "We are experiencing minor complications. You're losing. I can see it on your face. Or whatever that thing is that you call a face." Vex chitin plates smoothed out of sheer annoyance. "Your species is primitive. Your technology is laughable. Your lifespan is so short that by the time you learn anything useful, you die. You have no FTL, no energy weapons, no shields, no, and yet here you are," Marcus interrupted, "talking to me, while your harvesters burn." "The harvesters are not burning. That was an isolated incident involving fermented fruit. One harvester. Give it time." Vex wanted to argue, but the tactical display on her wrist was showing more and more harvesters going dark. The humans had discovered that the harvesters' hulls were vulnerable to extreme heat. They had discovered that the harvesters' sensors couldn't track them if they moved in large, chaotic groups. They had discovered that the harvesters' weapons, designed to pacify, not kill, could be blocked by something as simple as a metal trash can lid. They were learning, adapting, growing. In less than 12 hours. "Why?" Vex asked finally. "Why do you fight? The harvest takes nothing from you. You won't remember it. Your species will continue. Your children will be born. Your cities will stand. Why does any of this matter?" Marcus was quiet for a moment. Then, he reached into his pocket. She hadn't searched him thoroughly enough, apparently, and pulled out a small, worn photograph. He held it up so she could see. It showed a human female, perhaps 30 standard years old, with a smaller human on her hip. Both were smiling. Both were alive in a way that made Vex's thoracic cavity ache for reasons she couldn't name. "My wife," Marcus said. "My daughter. I don't understand. That's the problem." He tucked the photograph back into his pocket. "You don't understand. You think the harvest doesn't matter because we won't remember it. But we'll remember each other. We'll remember that something happened. We'll remember that the sky was wrong, that the air felt strange, that our children were afraid. And we'll spend the rest of our lives trying to figure out why. Trying to protect them from something we can't name." He stood up, walked to the force field that separated them, pressed his hand against it. "You're not taking anything from us," he said. "Not without a fight. Not without making us remember. Not without turning every single one of us into something you can't control." Vex looked into his eyes and saw something she had never seen before in 50 million years of harvesting. She saw a species that had turned survival into an art form. A species that had taken every horror the universe had thrown at them. Disease, famine, war, death, and turned into something that bound them together instead of tearing them apart. She saw a species that had turned horror into family. And for the first time in her long, long life, Captain Vex of the Xylosian cruiser Silent Gaze was afraid. The second day of the harvest was worse. Vex had stopped sleeping. Not that Xylosians needed much sleep, but she had stopped even the pretense of rest. The tactical display on her wrist was a constant scream of red. Harvesters disabled. Harvesters captured. Harvesters destroyed. The humans had started using their primitive aircraft, things called drones and jets, to engage the harvesters directly. It was like watching ants bring down an elephant. Slow, inefficient, inevitable. "The resistance has organized," Rel reported, his extra eyes blinking so fast they looked like strobe lights. "They're using their information network to coordinate attacks across the entire planet. They've developed something they call social media. It's disturbingly effective." "Show me." Rel projected the human information network onto the bridge's main display. It was chaos. Text, images, videos, all of it moving too fast to follow. But Vex could see patterns emerging. Calls to action. Warnings. Instructions. The humans were using their primitive technology to do something that even the Xylosians, with their FDL communications and neural interfaces, had never managed. They were making everyone a soldier. "Look at this," Rel said, highlighting a specific video. It showed a human female, young, maybe 20 standard years, standing in front of a harvester. She wasn't throwing anything, wasn't attacking. She was just talking to the harvester's external sensors as if she expected to be heard. "Go home," she said, her voice clear and steady despite the chaos around her. "Go home and tell your people what you saw here. Tell them we're not afraid of you. Tell them we've been fighting our whole lives. Tell them we're still standing." The video had been viewed by approximately 3 billion humans. "The resistance has a spokesperson," Rel said. "Her name is Elena Vasquez. She's 22 years old. She was studying agricultural science before the harvest began. Now, she's the most recognizable human on the planet." Vex watched Elena's face on the display. There was something in her eyes, something that looked like hope, but harder, sharper. The hope of someone who had already accepted that she might die, but refused to let that stop her. Has the harvest collected enough genetic material to satisfy the harvesters? Vex asked. "Barely. They're prioritizing speed over quality now." "But, Captain," Rel hesitated. "The harvesters are requesting extraction. They're saying the humans are scaring them. Scaring them." One harvester reported that a human child threw a stuffed toy at it. The toy was equipped with a primitive explosive device. The harvester's pilot is requesting psychological evaluation. Vex closed her eyes. When she opened them again, she made a decision that would haunt her for the rest of her life. "Recall the harvesters," she said. "We're leaving." But leaving, it turned out, was not that simple. The humans had anticipated the retreat. "Ow!" Vex demanded, watching the tactical display with something that felt uncomfortably like panic. How could they possibly anticipate a retreat? They don't know our tactics. They don't know our technology. They're not anticipating, Rel said slowly. They're preventing. He pulled up a satellite image of Earth's orbit. The space around the planet was filled with debris. Thousands of pieces of metal, plastic, and other materials, all moving at high velocity. The humans had launched something. Many somethings. They're called satellites, Rel said. They've been launching them for decades. Mostly for communication and observation. But approximately 300 of them are equipped with something called kinetic rods. The humans call the system Project Thor. It's a contingency plan for alien invasion. Vex stared at the debris field. The harvesters couldn't leave. Not without navigating through thousands of high-velocity projectiles designed to destroy incoming threats. The humans had built a trap around their own planet, not knowing if it would ever be needed, not knowing if it would work, just in case. In case of what? Vex whispered. In case someone came to take something from them, Rel said. In case someone tried. The tactical display showed the harvesters attempting to navigate the debris field. 3 had already been destroyed. More were damaged. The humans, it seemed, had also discovered that the harvesters' shields were vulnerable to sustained kinetic impact. Enough small objects, moving fast enough, would eventually break through. We're trapped, Vex said. Temporarily, Rel said. The debris field is chaotic, but not infinite. We can wait it out. In approximately 6 standard cycles, the field will disperse enough for safe passage. 6 cycles. 144 hours. During which time, the humans will continue to develop new ways to attack us. Vex looked at the hologram of Earth. Somewhere down there, 8 billion humans were celebrating their victory, dancing in the streets, holding up their children to see the burning harvesters. They had won, not through superior technology, not through superior tactics, through sheer, stubborn, irrational refusal to lose. This is what aberrant survival instinct looks like, Vex said softly. Yes, Captain. And the harvesters? What do they recommend? Rel consulted his console. The harvesters recommend orbital bombardment. Vex blood, if Xylosians had blood, ran cold. Orbital bombardamento. Of a Class C civilization? That's forbidden. The Galactic Compact. The Galactic Compact has provisions for self-defense. If the harvesters cannot extract without being destroyed, they're permitted to use force to ensure their own survival. Force, not orbital bombardment, not genocide. The harvesters are interpreting force broadly. Vex looked at the hologram again, at the dancing humans, at the children, at the young woman, Elena Vasquez, who had become the voice of a species that refused to be silent. And she remembered what Marcus Webb had said. You don't know us. You really don't know us at all. The harvesters are not to engage, Vex said. That's an order. Captain, that's an order, Rel. We will wait out the debris field. We will leave peacefully. And we will never speak of this harvest again. Rel's extra eyes blinked in sequence, his species equivalent of a sigh. Yes, Captain. But the harvesters didn't listen. Vex should have expected it. The harvesters were not Xylosian. They were a client species, efficient, logical, and completely lacking in what humans called empathy. They saw the debris field as an obstacle, the humans as a threat, and threats in their cold, calculating minds needed to be eliminated. The first kinetic strike hit the Pacific Ocean. Vex felt the impact through the floor of the bridge, a shudder that traveled through the ship's hull and into her chitin. The tactical display lit up with a new icon, a massive wave traveling outward from the impact site, growing larger as it approached land. What was that? She demanded. The harvesters, Rel said, his voice hollow. They've launched a kinetic strike. A piece of metal, accelerated to near light speed. It hit the ocean approximately 500 kilometers from a populated landmass called Japan. The wave will reach the coast in approximately 20 minutes. The humans call it a tsunami. They have warning systems in place, but... Captain, the wave is 50 meters high. Vex's mind raced through the implications. 50 meters. Enough to destroy coastal cities. Enough to kill millions. Enough to make the humans understand that resistance was futile. But the humans, she was beginning to realize, did not understand futility. Can you stop the harvesters? She asked. I can try. But, Captain, if I disable their weapons systems, they'll know. They'll report us to the Compact. We'll be charged with failing to protect a harvesting operation. Disable them. Captain, disable them, Rel. Now. Rel's hands flew across his console. The tactical display showed the harvesters' weapons systems going offline, one by one. But it was too late. The wave was already moving. The damage was already done. Vex watched the Human Information Network as the tsunami hit Japan. The images were terrible, water sweeping away buildings, cars, people. The humans who had been dancing in the streets were now running for their lives. The children who had been held up to see the burning harvesters were now crying for parents who had been washed away. And in the midst of all that destruction, Elena Vasquez was still talking. "We're still here," she said, her voice rough from hours of speaking. "We're still standing. We've survived worse. We've survived each other. We'll survive this. And we'll remember. We'll always remember." Vex watched the video loop over and over until she couldn't watch anymore. "What have we done?" she whispered. "What we always do," Rel said. "What we've always done. We harvested. We took. And when something fought back, we broke it. We didn't break them." "No," Rel agreed. "We didn't." Marcus Webb was still in his holding cell when Vex returned. He was sitting cross-legged on the floor, eyes closed, breathing slow and steady. Meditating, she realized. Preparing. Even now, even after everything, he was still preparing to survive. "The harvesters attacked," she said. His eyes opened. "How bad?" "Kinetic strike. Pacific Ocean. Tsunami. Japan." Marcus's face didn't change, but something behind his eyes shifted. "Grief, maybe, or rage, or both." "How many?" "We don't know yet. Thousands. Possibly millions." "Millions." He said the word like it was a stone in his mouth. Heavy. Impossible to swallow. "We disabled the harvesters' weapons," Vex said. "They won't attack again." Marcus stood up slowly, walked to the force field, pressed his hand against it just like before. "You think that makes it better?" he asked. "You think disabling their weapons undoes what they did?" "No, but it's all I can do. All you can do." Marcus laughed again, that dark, terrible laugh. "You came to our planet. You tried to take our DNA. You killed millions of us. And you think disabling the weapons is all you can do? What else would you have me do?" Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then, he did something Vex did not expect. He sat down again, crossed his legs, closed his eyes. "Talk to me," he said. "Tell me about your species. Tell me about your history. Tell me why you do this. Why you harvest. Why you take. Why you've been doing it for 50 million years." "I don't. Talk to me," Marcus repeated, "or I'll sit here in silence until the debris field disperses and you leave. And you'll go back to your empire with nothing but questions. Questions you'll never answer. Questions that will haunt you for the rest of your long, long life." Vex looked at him, this primitive, short-lived, fragile creature, and realized something terrible. He was negotiating, not for his freedom, not for his life, for information, for understanding, for the one thing the Xylosians had never bothered to acquire from the species they harvested, their stories. 50 million years ago, Vex began slowly. The Xylosians were not the dominant species in the galaxy. We were prey. We were harvested. We were taken apart, piece by piece, by creatures we couldn't see and couldn't fight. Marcus didn't open his eyes, but he nodded, encouraging her to continue. "We learned," Vex said. "We evolved. We grew chitin to protect ourselves. We grew claws to fight back. We grew minds that could outthink anything in the galaxy. And when we were strong enough, we stopped being prey. We became the harvesters. And you never thought about what it felt like," Marcus said. "Being prey. Being taken apart. You never thought about the fear, the pain, the loss." "We thought about it every day," Vex said. "That's why we do it. To remind ourselves that we're strong now. That we're safe now. That nothing will ever harvest us again." Marcus opened his eyes, looked at her, really looked at her, in a way no one had looked at her in 50 million years. "You turned your horror into armor," he said. "We turned ours into family." "What does that mean?" Marcus pulled out his photograph again, looked at his wife, his daughter, smiled a small, sad smile. "It means we don't forget," he said. "We don't forget the people we've lost. We don't forget the things that have hurt us. We carry them with us. Every day, every moment. They become part of us, part of who we are. And when something new tries to hurt us, something that doesn't understand what we've been through, we show them. Show them what?" Marcus tucked the photograph back into his pocket. "We show them the scars," he said. "And we say, you think this is bad? You should have seen the other guy." The third day was the longest. The debris field had begun to disperse, but The harvesters were still trapped, still frightened, still demanding permission to launch more kinetic strikes. Vex had refused. The harvesters had responded by threatening to report her to the compact. Vex had responded by threatening to jettison them into the sun. It was, by Xylosian standards, a very emotional conversation. Marcus had been returned to his holding cell, but Vex found herself visiting him more and more often. There was something about his presence, his calm, his patience, his refusal to be intimidated, that steadied her, grounded her, made her feel like maybe, just maybe, she wasn't the monster the humans thought she was. "You're thinking about leaving," Marcus said as she entered. "The debris field will be navigable in approximately 12 hours. We're preparing for departure. And the harvesters? What happens to them? They'll return to their home world. Report on the harvest. Recommend that Earth be classified as a Class B threat." Marcus raised an eyebrow. "Class B? Too dangerous for standard harvesting protocols. Any future contact with your species will require military escort." "That's a lot of words for 'we're scared of you.'" Vex chitin plates twitched. "We are not scared. We are cautious. Same thing. It is not the same thing. It's exactly the same thing." Marcus smiled. A real smile this time. Not the dark, terrible one from before. "You came here thinking we were weak. You found out we weren't. Now you're leaving. That's fear. That's caution. That's whatever you want to call it. But it's not victory." "No," Vex agreed. "It's not." She stood in silence for a moment, watching him watch her. There was something in his eyes now, something that looked almost like pity. Pity for her, for the Xylosians, for all the species in the galaxy who had turned their horror into armor instead of family. "Marcus," she said finally, "why did you tell me your story? Why did you make me tell you mine?" Marcus was quiet for a long moment. Then he reached into his pocket, the same photograph, and held it up to the force field. "Because my daughter is going to grow up in a galaxy that knows about us now," he said, "and I wanted her to have a chance to be more than just prey, a chance to be more than just a harvester, a chance to be something new, something that turns horror into family." Vex looked at the photograph, at the smiling woman, at the laughing child, at the love that radiated from the image like heat from a star. And for the first time in 50 million years, Captain Vex of the Xylosian cruiser Silent Gaze understood. The departure was quiet. The harvesters launched first, their damaged ships limping toward the debris field like wounded animals. Vex watched them go, feeling nothing. Then, she watched the Silent Gaze prepare for departure, feeling everything. "Course is set," Rel said. "We'll be clear of the debris field in approximately 11 hours. "Good. Captain, are you all right?" Vex looked at the hologram of Earth, at the blue-green marble that had nearly destroyed her career, her ship, her species' understanding of the galaxy. "I'm fine," she said. "I'm just thinking about what comes next." Rel's extra eyes blinked. "The compact will want a full report. They'll want to know why the harvest failed. They'll want to know why you disabled the harvester's weapons. They'll want to know if the humans are a threat," Vex interrupted. "And I'm going to tell them the truth." "The truth?" Vex turned away from the hologram, looked at her bridge, at her crew, at the ship that had been her home for longer than most species existed. "The truth is," she said, "the humans are not a threat. They're not weak. They're not strong. There's something else entirely. Something we've never seen before." "And what's that?" Vex thought about Marcus Webb, about his photograph, about his daughter, who would grow up in a galaxy that knew about Earth now. "Family," she said. "They're family." Elena Vasquez stood on the beach and watched the alien ships disappear into the sky. The water was still receding from the tsunami, pulling back the debris of destroyed cities and shattered lives. Behind her, rescue workers dug through rubble, searching for survivors. Around her, survivors clung to each other, crying, laughing, praying, cursing. And in her hand, she held a phone, broadcasting to the world, to the 3 billion people who had watched her speak, who had followed her instructions, who had fought and died and survived. "They're leaving," she said. "The harvesters are leaving. The ships are gone." The phone trembled in her hand, not from fear, from exhaustion. From grief. From the weight of everything she had seen and done in the past 3 days. We don't know if they'll come back, she continued. We don't know if there are others. We don't know what's out there, waiting for us. But we know one thing. She looked at the sky, at the fading lights of the departing ships, at the stars that had never seemed so close or so far away. We know we're still here, she said. We know we survived. We know we fought. And we know we'll do it again. Together. Always together. She lowered the phone, turned to face the camera, smiled a smile that was sad and fierce and hopeful all at once. Go home, she said. Hug your children. Call your parents. Tell someone you love them. Because that's what we do. That's what we've always done. That's what makes us human. She ended the broadcast, sat down in the sand, let the tears come. And somewhere in a ship leaving Earth's orbit, Captain Vex watched the broadcast and felt something she had never felt before. She felt like she had a family. The Xylosian Compact received Captain Vex's report 3 standard cycles later. It was the shortest report in Compact history, consisting of exactly 4 words. Do not harvest Earth. Ever. When asked to elaborate, Vex submitted a second report. This one was longer. It contained footage of the tsunami, footage of the resistance, footage of Elena Vasquez speaking to 3 billion people with nothing but a phone and a broken heart. And it contained a single image. A photograph taken from Marcus Webb's pocket showing a woman and a child, smiling, alive, loved. Below the image, Vex had written, "This is what they fight for. This is what they die for. This is what they live for. Not survival. Not victory. Each other. We have harvested 1,000 worlds. We have never seen anything like this. Leave them alone." The Compact debated for 3 more cycles. Then, in a decision that shocked the galaxy, they agreed. Earth was classified as a Class A preserve. No harvesting. No contact. No interference of any kind. The humans never knew. They went back to their lives. Their wars. Their loves. Their losses. They forgot about the harvesters, mostly. They told stories about the 3 days the sky was wrong, but the stories became legends, and the legends became myths, and the myths became nothing at all. Except for one thing. The children who had been born during the harvest, the ones who had felt the compliance pulse in their developing brains, were different. Not stronger. Not weaker. Just different. More connected to each other. More aware of each other. More likely to help a stranger, to comfort a crying child, to stand between danger and someone they loved. They were, Marcus Webb would later say, the first generation of a new kind of human. A generation that had turned horror into family. And somewhere, in a ship far above Earth, Captain Vex watched them grow. Watched them learn. Watched them love. And smiled. Because she understood now. She understood what Marcus had tried to tell her. What Elena had shown the world. What the humans had always known. The universe was full of horrors. Monsters. Threats. Things that wanted to take and break and destroy. But the humans had figured out the only weapon that mattered. They had figured out how to hold each other. And that, Vex realized, was enough. That was always enough.